Welcome back to the channel, family, and another broadcast. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a grateful recovered addict.
So today, Catherine's going to be sharing her experience, strength, and hope with us. And I just want to mention that if you're still using drugs and you're looking for a solution, we have a solution. Please check out the other broadcasts on this channel. There are 14 podcasts on the steps. There's 2 on step 1, 2 on step 2. There's about 14 personal stories. There's one on entire psychic change, spiritual malady, the ABCs of addiction, and lots and lots of other content. So please check those out. Further on in this podcast, there'll be information about meetings face-to-face and online on Zoom. There's also going to be various readings. I'm going to have up on the screen a chapter called More About Alcoholism from our basic text, Alcoholics Anonymous, often called the Big Book. So please stay tuned. Bear in mind, you can pause and rewind this whenever you like. Wherever you see this posted on in the rooms or Skype or YouTube or WhatsApp, please feel free to get involved in the conversation. And as always, stay safe, stay strong. So without further ado, I'm really, really pleased to just hand the floor over to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for inviting me here today. Yeah, so I'll tell my story of like how it was, how it is now, and what happened to get to how it is now. And if anyone who was listening, just listen for the similarities and not the differences. So by working through the program and the steps, I have got to the root cause of all my problems. And it started from a really early age. I really struggled with self-love and my identity. I've never known how to be my true self, the real Catherine. And I knew it was always deep inside of me. So I had no idea how to harness this from like being a really young girl. I craved the feeling of needing to be loved and nurtured. And in my family, unfortunately, there was quite a lot of severe trauma before I was born, which obviously when I was little, I was completely unaware of. And, the details were far too much for a young child to understand. So this created in me like an ability to feel love externally, and this is like I was about age 7. So I now know it didn't nourish my little soul. I would spend hours and hours living in different worlds in my head and creating what like I thought to be like a safety bubble. This kind of fed me desire that I wasn't good enough for this world. I was never going to be good enough to be loved and appreciated and valued. And, when I was a real little girl, I'd spend hours sat in books, reading and reading and reading. And I truly believed when I was in that moment that like I was that character. I could easily slip out of being Catherine into whoever I wanted. And I remember like I'd even sit with all my teddy bears around me and they were my friends and they loved me. But your teddy bears get put away at the end of the night and the books close, don't they? And then I was left with myself and this burning pain that I'd never be good enough and what's up with me and why can't I have what I perceive other children to have? And like it was all about love and not feeling good enough. Now that is just my child's perspective. My family did love me, and it was just a hard emotion to show in my family. And I know that they do love me now, and it was just when you're a child, you're just really like egocentric. Everything's about me. And I didn't know how to handle it all. So yeah, due to trauma in the family and leading to me family not being able to communicate properly. Um, this little 7-year-old girl wasn't able to understand all this and process it. Didn't like have any tools or anything. So, I remember when I was little lying in bed, and it's quite vivid actually. And the more it really hurts me when I think about it. And I'd lie in bed and it'd be like seeing myself like lay in a hospital bed and dying. I've been in a car accident, or I've got this illness, and my family would all be around me and it'd be full of love. And and it's quite disturbing really to think that I was that young and feeling these feelings. And this is before I even put a drug in me. um So it went on for years that I lived in a world of escapism. I'd escape from the pain and torture of myself by doing this, visioning this like other world, and a world where everyone loved me. But I was literally dying inside every night. I then suffered from terrible nightmares. I grew up from a little girl to a teenager, and I always had a big smile on my face. But that's where the smile stopped. My eyes told a completely different story. I was in pain, in torture. I had no self belief. I had no self worth. I had no confidence. I had no identity. I didn't know who I was. I tried really hard at school. I've always loved to learn. Um, I got really into the creative side of me, and that released a bit of pain. I was really into art. I was into music, and when I was painting, I'd go into my little world, and when I was playing music, I'd be in my little world. But all these external things, they don't last forever. So when I stopped playing, when I put the paintbrush down, I was back with me, whoever me was. Um, and just like everything, my teddy's getting put away, the book's closing, friendships ending, nothing lasted forever. Nothing external would last forever. However, I kept trying. I changed friends often. New friendships didn't last. Um, I'd meet I'd meet a new friend and I'd change everything. I'd change my hair, my clothes, my interests, my music, absolutely everything. And it seemed to fix me for short bursts, but it always came crashing down afterwards. And then, as I was getting into my teenage years, I found boys. They seem to be able to fix me a bit more than the friendships, and a bit more than the creativity did. Once again, they were external fixes, and they were getting harsher, and they were taking more of a toll on me. And like the come down from them was getting harder and harder, and it was like detrimental on me mind and my body and soul. I remember a night, it fills me with pain even thinking about it. I got like beaten up really badly by a friend who was meant to be a best friend, but it was always very superficial, my friendships. But to me, they wasn't superficial, they was everything. And she didn't half beat me up, to be fair. And like she pulled loads of my hair out. I was covered in bruises and scratches. And do you know what? The physical pain of that little attack was nothing compared to like the torture I felt inside of me. The, you know, not knowing who I was, not knowing how it felt to be loved and wanted. So, along with the constant rejection from friendships, rejection from boys, I honestly felt worthless. I was always like a commodity until something new and shiny, better came along, and then I got tossed aside. Um, and that just fed me like belief that I was useless and worthless and not wanted and not loved, that I was like just nothing. So after that day where I had, oh, well, I wouldn't say it was a fight, I got attacked. I completely crashed. I took a really, really serious overdose. I was very poorly in hospital. I took a lot of stuff. I don't think I realised what I was doing. And then the years of the vision that used to like keep me safe, that, you know, on my deathbed, I'd be loved and feel this eternal love and nurturing and self-worth. It didn't happen. My family was like broken by it. The doctors and nurses, they were just disappointed, and it was a horrible feeling. So that moment that I built up in my head, that I'd have this ecstatic feeling, it wasn't there. And you know what? That night I felt what true emptiness was. I was truly broken. I was completely dead inside the body. That and you know, and this is still before I've actually taken drugs. So I never went back to school. I pretty much taught myself my GCSEs, which I did very well in, and I am proud of that. um, I broke my family a bit more. Mum stayed off work for a long time. I became the Catherine that always had the smile on the surface. I remember sitting with psychiatrists when I was like 15, and they're like, "But you're smiling," and I just sat there smiling. But it was just on the surface. Inside, I was broken, battered, and exhausted. I tried college; it's too much for me, so I got a job. I made a friend, started going clubbing and partying, and I entered a new world where people didn't know my past, and I had a little job. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. And then I found ecstasy. It was like my new teddy bear. I changed everything about myself to fit in with the new crowd. And ecstasy, it took me to a new world, like a new dimension, and it fixed the pain and the torture of having to be me. It just took me out of myself. Um, and I honestly believed it had all the answers that I've been looking for. How wrong was I? So from that, there was like the next, say, 15 years was just continually drug use, and because of the drug use, bad situations happened. On when I was using ecstasy, I ended up getting like really like sexually assaulted really bad, and I believed it was my fault. You know, I'd put myself in that situation. I did have a boyfriend at the time, and I told him, and he obviously finished with me and said it was my fault. And so um, things were just getting worse and worse. And then I I met someone who, you know, every guy I met, I thought, this is the one. He's going to love me. He's going to fix me. He's going to make me feel like I'm validated and good enough for the world. And like I'd put everything I had into these people, and he turned out not to be a very nice person. Um, and he introduced me to cocaine because he put me out working for him for a few years, which was absolutely awful. And I wasn't very good at drinking. I can get sickly quite easily, so I had to take cocaine to stay sober and still be able to drink, which was just disastrous. And you know, this that went on for a few years, and obviously it didn't end well. And I got into other relationships then after that, but because I had no self-worth at all, obviously I was attracting the wrong type of people. And you know, drugs was soon becoming the only thing I had in my life that I loved. Um, and it went on. I then met someone who was nice, but drugs were still involved, and I thought having a baby would fix me. I thought it's the only thing that's going to stop me using. It is the only thing that's going to stop me. It didn't. Um, and I did stop using then in the pregnancy, but I was what I know now to have the obsession. I was yeah, my mind just went crazy. So once I had my child, my beautiful daughter, I continued to use, and it was getting like more and more severe. It was I was putting it before everything. In I think it's 7 years ago, I ended up having really bad psychosis and schizophrenia. Whether it was the drugs or whether it was mental, you know, whether they don't know. But I was admitted to a psychiatric unit for 4 months, and it was horrific. It really was. It was the most scary time of my life. And while I was in hospital, I lost my job. I didn't lose my daughter because my mum and dad, thank goodness, like, um, I lost my car, I lost my house, I literally lost everything I owned. So when I come out of the hospital 4 months later, I was back to living in the bunk beds in mum's house with Rosie, and I was still using. I was sat on the bottom bunk bed and Rosie's on the top, and I was using, sat in ballerina bedding. And I remember that particular night thinking, this isn't right. This isn't normal. But I continued, and I continued and continued, and you know, circumstances were getting worse and worse. I was using more and more. It wasn't having the effect it used to have. I'd need more and more, and it was getting progressive. Progression was actually quite scary when I look back now. At the time, I didn't realise it. I was just going through the motions and just using. And then I finally got my own house again, and that's when it really got bad. I didn't have to be as sneaky, and I'd do anything. That's the whole point of my life. The whole purpose of my life was getting that next bag. And it breaks my heart really that I really truly believe that that was the only way to fix me. Now that I'm in recovery, looking back at that time, it's really hard. And I came into recovery because I was going to end my life. I was getting through Christmas Day, and I rung the C.A helpline on Boxing Day it was. And I was met on the phone. This guy, it was Boxing Day, and I couldn't believe this guy sat and talked to me, and he said, I'll get a woman in your area to ring you back. I was like, okay, thank you. Not really sure what's happening. All these people wanting to help you on a day where they should be with the families. And a lady called me back and was on the phone for quite some time, and I'm now really good friends with this woman. And the first year in recovery, I did relapse, but I hadn't fully surrendered. Um, I hadn't accepted the fact that I cannot use drugs and alcohol. But I honestly, although there was a relapse involved, I honestly believe that I learned so much in that time. And had I maybe not learned what I've learned, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I went back out the rooms, and the powerlessness was really starting to hit home. And I was sat there questioning, why do I do this? Why? I don't know. Why do I do this? And I remember I owed money to a particular dealer, and he was at the front door, like kicking the door and in front of my child, like threatening to burn my house down. And I ended up asking my mum for money to pay him off. And I was like, Mum, I swear down, this is it. I will never, ever, ever use again. I said it terrified me. It really terrified me, and I will not do this again. And there've been other situations like this, but what happened after this, it really shocked me. So my mum, broken, heartbroken, angry, and in fear. My poor mum. she borrowed me the money, and she went, and I was like, right, this is it. This is the new me. I'm here. This is it. And within 30 minutes, I was sat in the dealer's kitchen while he was upstairs getting an eighth ready for me. And I remember sat there thinking, how has this happened? How 30 minutes ago was I determined to change my life and never use drugs again? How has this happened? And and from that particular day, never used the same. It changed. It was this feeling like in my heart, knowing that this isn't right. And after having some recovery time, it hurt even more. But I did carry on for a couple more months. And it was getting worse and worse and worse. And the feeling inside me, the void inside me was getting deeper and deeper and darker and darker. And although this time I didn't lose everything, I didn't lose my home or, you know, things like that, I'd lost myself. The little bit of me that I did get back through that year in recovery, I'd lost, but I'd lost it even more than I ever thought. And it was it was awful. I can't. It was so painful, and it hurts so much knowing it didn't have to be like that. But not knowing that, how do we do it? I've tried and it's not worked. How? Why am I feeling like this? Why? Why can I not stop? Why is coke more important to me than anything else in my life? Because I've got a beautiful family, lovely friends, lovely pets. Why is that not good enough? But it wasn't, because cocaine for me was my ruler. And yeah, really, it hurts me when I think about it, but I always need to make sure that I never forget that feeling. Um, because from that feeling, which people talk about rock bottoms, but I don't think there is a rock bottom. It'll just keep getting worse and worse until you're actually in the grave. I've been in psychiatric hospitals. Don't know how I've not been arrested for using and driving. Could have been in prison. But there was only one place got for me, and that was going to be like buried and the end of me. And it was getting closer and closer and closer. So came back, and you know what? I'm smiling saying it. I came back with a whole new approach. That brokenness that it was killing me. I was just this shell walking. So I came back to the rooms and started step work with my sponsor. And as I say, I hadn't lost everything that I had learned the previous year, but I had to completely admit defeat. You know, I had to feel that brokenness on a brand new level. I had to accept I am powerless. And I also had to crush that I think I can do this, because I can't do it. There's proof and proof and proof that I cannot do this. And I had to accept the complete devastating weakness that was me on my self-will, and the consequences that had come from that relapse, and from the decades before. I had to proper accept that no human power can fix this. Whether it be a doctor, whether it be my mum, my daughter, myself, no human power can fix it. I was honest, drugs was destroying me. I was masking my feelings with drugs. I was numbing myself with drugs, and they was destroying me and my family. Um, the progression is fatal. I was gonna die. So we had to get proper honest, really, really honest, and start to sacrifice my time and my energy into the program because it was the only thing that was gonna save me. Um, my sponsor said to me, "Are you willing to go to any lengths, Catherine?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." She said, "But you said this last year." She said, "Are you willing to go to any lengths?" I said, "I am." And she said, "Are you willing to carry this message in CA to all the other addicts?" And she hadn't asked me that before, and I was like, "Oh, right. Yes, yes." And at this point, I think I would have said yes to anything. So it dawned on me, them 2 questions that she asked me, I needed to do to stay alive. It was life or death for me. I had to do these 2 things to stay alive. So I said yes, and you know what? That day, I feel like I properly surrendered. Um, the darkness began to lift. It started with like this little glow in my tummy. I can still, well, feel it all the time, but I can remember feeling that moment, like a little warm glow, which I now know was God. Um, it was beautiful, like a really warm energy. And when I've been living in such darkness and coldness, it was very welcomed. Um, I truly believe that that day I surrendered and I unblocked myself from God. Um, and for me, my God is like love and nurturing, kind and caring. And it all hit me at once. You know, I've been living in this world where I seek love and care from all the wrong things. Um, and you know, that moment filled me with hope. And I did step 2 there and then. I came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. You know, I've been doing the same thing over and over again, not just with drugs, but with money, with friendships, with everything. You know, I've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I'd even done it in recovery. I hadn't let go. I was doing the same thing over again. And I had to end that way of thinking. I had to literally close a door on it and open my mind to a new way of life. I had far too much experience showing me that my way was horrific. My way doesn't work. My way was ending in me in a coffin. Um, and I think the first year in CA, I'd obviously fought against this. I hadn't let go to God, and yeah, step 2 flowed into me, and it was beautiful and filled me with love and hope. And it began a journey to like complete self-love and care. All these like beliefs I had on myself that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't able to be loved. They've started to go away. Um, the obsession to use cocaine that I was using daily went, and I've never had that thought again, which is an absolute miracle in itself. I don't need to seek external love anymore. Love's in me now. Love, like God is in me. Um, yeah, I've got that inner glow and I'm so grateful for it. And I do not take it for granted. I really don't. So I'm able to talk to my God through prayer, and it's beautiful. You know, and I get my answers through meditation. I get a feeling in my tummy. I like hear messages. You know, it's like a constant intuition. It's always around me, and you know, it's not about me anymore. It's how can I best serve Him, not me. Um, God's fixed for me what I couldn't do for myself, or what anyone else couldn't do for myself. Drugs couldn't do it, friendships couldn't do it, men couldn't do it, material things couldn't do it, doctors and psychiatrists couldn't do it. But God's done that. God's done for me what I cannot do for myself. really got humble and received the gift of faith, and it's working because I don't need to use anymore. And you know what? If you are out there and you are struggling, anyone can get this. If I can get faith, anyone can. You know, I've learned to forgive all the past, even people who've hurt me. I forgive them because by holding on to that fear and resentment, it's only made me sicker. So I have truly forgiven all the people that have hurt me in my life, and I've started to forgive myself for all the damage and the hurt I've caused. I'm in a new way of life now, now that I've got faith, and it's just working. So trust me, you know, I've had situations in recovery this time, and faith's working. Um, you know, we say like about living life on life's terms, and it is 100% possible to get through anything without seeking that external love from whether it be drugs, men, whatever. You know, you can get through anything. I was incapable of receiving grace. Um, I hadn't surrendered. I completely lacked in humility when I was first in the rooms, and, you know, I'm glad I've gone through that journey though, because it's made me really appreciate what it's like to have that now. And step 3 for me, it's very easy. I think I'd already done it. I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. You know, I knew I couldn't do it for myself. I had to remove that self-will, which still creeps in, but our program is wonderful and I can identify it quickly and turn it around. Um, I had to get willing. I had to get proper willing to put this dependence on God rather than people, places, and things. You know, I've been so dependent on my mum all my life. I've been dependent on Coke to make me feel better. I don't need that now because I've got a dependence on God. It's actually growing me to be an independent woman for the first time ever. Um, you know, I couldn't make a decision without speaking to people and getting the self-pity, and, you know, everything was always about me. But now I can sit quietly with my God and ask for like direction and inspiration, and it does come. Um, I'm like safe and protected now. The book says we get put into a position of place of neutrality, safe and protection, and I feel that I the inner this inner glow that I can feel, and like I can see when I close my eyes is always in me. I know I know when it's blocked because I immediately don't feel right, and I can use the tools that I've learned in recovery to unblock it again and get God flowing through me. Um, God's doing for me what I can't do for myself. You know, I don't take drugs anymore. I think of other people. I'm trying to be the best human I can. Um, I'm very far from perfect, by the way, very far. And I will always remain teachable. I know there's so much to learn in this world, and I really believe that as long as I'm willing to keep learning, keep growing, and keep God within my life, things will carry on going as they are. Um, God's my strength now. God's my power. Um, you know, if I was to go out there and use drugs again, it's because I've made a choice to drop God and pick drugs up. Um, Now, if I was to put one drug inside me, I'd be off because that's when my powerlessness would kick in. So by working the program daily, doing everything that's suggested, being 120% willing to carry this message on and go to any lengths. My life now, I've got inner peace. I'm full of love. I've got trust and respect in my life. I've got my family. I've got knowledge that my mum can sleep every night, not worrying if my daughter's gonna come in and find me dead. I've got boundaries. I've got a purpose in life. I've got patience again. I have empathy and I've got light in my life. It's not dark anymore. Got responsibilities. You know, I do a lot of service for CA and I volunteer as well. Um, you know, I've got purpose and you know, I'm accountable. I've got acceptance over my past. I've got forgiveness over my past. I'm honest, got humility, got self-worth. I've got grace, and you know what? I've got my health now. Um, I had none of that in active addiction, and you know what? I had none of that before active addiction. By surrendering and being proper willing, like so willing to put the action in that's needed, I've got hope, and I've got my God. I've proper found serenity, and like I found like the Catherine that that little 7-year-old girl just desired to be. I'm forever grateful for CA for showing me the way to find this internal love that's God. Um, and I've never looked back. So I'll leave it there.
Beautiful. Great to hear you, Catherine. Thanks for sharing. Beautiful share, beautiful message, crystal clear. You know, wonderful to have the privilege of sharing this journey with you to some degree, you know, and to hear you share. Yeah, and to see the process of change over a period of time in folks is one of the privileges of the fellowship, you know. And you know, I was talking yesterday with a dear member, just completed step 12 with somebody, and we was talking about how, you know, being a regular, reliable member of a home group helps sponsor the newcomer. It says in our basic text, the group sponsors the newcomer, you know, and your steady influence at the groups that we attend, you know, and it's a source of encouragement and enlightenment to newcomers and to folks that have been there a while. And it's just a wonderful blessing to hear a clear, steady message, you know, and have some balance is a wonderful thing. And I always have a sense of freshness, you know, and peace and joy when I hear you share. And it really is a gift of God. You know, I think the bigger picture is, you know, that God is already at work in step one before we get to the rooms. God is already at work. You know, and conscious contact begins in that accountability and transparency in step one. And you know, you mentioned as well, you know, how you felt sure that it was the wrong thing when you was on the bunk bed that day, and now you're so sure that recovery, that CA, that the program, the steps, the fellowship is the right thing, you know. And you talked about how you have the gifts of recovery now, you know, the serenity, the faith and trust, the reliability, the service, you know, and it's just such a great share. And you know, for anyone that's still using drugs and listening to this podcast, please come along to a face-to-face 12-step meeting where you can hear many messages just like Catherine's of hope, faith and courage and solution. You know, we have a solution, we know how it works. It begins with abstinence and continues with a simple program of action on a daily basis. Now, please check out the podcast on this channel on the 12 steps. There's also one that's an introduction to CA program steps and fellowship. Let's talk about the spiritual malady, Catherine. So, you know, it's widely thought that it's a threefold malady: separation from God, wrong thinking, wrong living. And then the solution is connection with God, right thinking, right living. What's been your experience around the malady as was and the solution as is?
Yeah. Um, the malady I had long before I took drugs. Drugs were just a solution at that time to fix that malady. In recovery, do you know what? I actually feel in pain when I think about that. It's like people say, don't leave a hole in the soul, that void, that emptiness. And do you know what? In recovery, it's absolutely full of love and kindness, and yeah, it's just on a different level. Um, I don't have a spiritual malady now, but if I do start tipping that way, I can soon top it back up. So I'm back to being safe, protected, and neutral.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And, I think working with others, whether that's in terms of taking someone through the 12 steps or being a part of other folks' support networks, which is a vital part of recovery,
Oh
having,
God, yeah.
maintaining an active support network. And what I mean by that is, I mean, half a dozen folks that you remain in contact with. You don't need to tell them your surname, address, or bank balance, but they care about your sobriety and you care about those. And so you maintain and build a connection. And folks drop off, change fellowships, pick up. You don't always click with everybody. So it's very important to maintain a support network, I think, and to,
Yeah,
to stay in contact, and even if it's just 5-10 minutes of a substantial discussion about sobriety, it can be very enhancing to that particular day. And it's been my experience that getting through the days in early and short-term recovery is very, very important. Um,
yeah.
and in terms of the malady, I think really, another term for the malady is the bedevilments.
Mm,
Working with others, they often say in the rooms that one of the privileges of staying around, staying sober and staying connected in the fellowship is you get to see the malady and learn from other persons' experiences with the malady. And if you apply those lessons, you don't need to experience the malady so much. Which sounds a little bit unfortunate at other person's expense, but that's the reality of it.
yeah.
You're dealing with very, very sick, deluded, wretched persons that have got full of consequences. I mean, some of the persons are so bedeviled, and they've, their parents have done with them, their brothers and sisters are done with them. They've perhaps lost their homes. They're in a terrible, terrible state. Some of the persons I talk to, and recovery is possible, Catherine. Anyone can
It's
recover, and I've seen such persons get well over a period of time.
yeah,
I've also seen others that have not practiced this program and have died. So
yeah,
that's the truth. That's the reality of it. It is a killer illness.
yeah. Someone
Anyway, but
I know has died this morning of
yeah.
addiction.
Mhm. Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry to hear that. Was it somebody local?
no, it's just someone I've connected through CA. It's really, really sad. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? It is a fatal illness, this that we're dealing with. It is a life or death, situation.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to have a chat later on at some point.
Yeah,
That is the reality of it. You
yeah,
know,
it
um,
really is.
a few weeks ago, a woman, and I know her. Well, I knew her and her brother and her mother. And she died of overdose 2 months ago, and she lives 70 or 80 yards from where I live, and she's left a 9-year-old boy. And that's what we're dealing with. That was someone I actually knew, that I've used with a long time ago.
Yeah,
And so that is what we're dealing with, and that's why we've got to be clear about these things, that we all like to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, you know, um, but the awful reality is, we have to keep it real.
yeah,
And in terms of, just to round up our conversation about the malady, in recovery and sobriety, um, it's possible to be bedeviled and deluded, clean and sober.
yeah,
All the things like lust, greed, envy, hatred, pride, arrogance, gossip, gambling, materialism, all these things, overeating, all these things are enemies against us, as it were,
mm,
and sobriety is vigilance. Living clean is more than being clean from drugs. Living clean involves a clean heart and a clean mind.
yeah,
Don't go sip the poison. Now, we no longer drink alcohol, which has been medically proven to be poison. We don't go sip alcohol. But watch out, be careful, keep a clean heart, guard your mind. Many an addict has gone back out deluded and confused and resentful, and baffled.
Mm,
And I was told about this with an addict yesterday about how, generally when folks pick up drink and drugs again after a period of sobriety and abstinence and a degree of recovery, they usually languish in the defects of character for a little while. And the physical picking up of the substance is the end of the relapse. The
yeah.
relapse began weeks and weeks before,
To be
so
honest, I really believe that um, stopping using and drinking for me is like a side effect of recovery. Like the main thing of my recovery is about living a spiritual life, and by doing that, a side effect is that I don't need to drink or use. Um, and like you're either working on a relapse by not living a spiritual life, or you're working on recovery by living spiritually.
absolutely, absolutely. And I have seen persons get a lot of help. I think it's very important to have balance. I
Mm,
think it's very important. And one of the things that I enjoy very much as being part of your recovery is it's a bridge to normal living. We've discussed this, haven't we, in the past,
yeah,
Catherine? We're not a cult, we're not a religion,
no.
right? We don't have to agree on every part of the book. There are contradictions in the book.
Mhm.
We don't have to agree on every jot and tittle. We're clean and sober. We've crossed that bridge to normal living. We have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And now it's about living an ordinary life again.
Yeah.
And as long as we practice these principles, stay connected, do the suggestions, and most importantly of all, build that relationship with God. The Creator gives us grace, and we can be reasonably productive.
Mhm.
Um, Now, we've had on the screen here more about alcoholism, which is a phenomenal chapter. And just a quick shout out to our literature. And this is from the book Alcoholics Anonymous. This is our basic text. It's available for about £11 delivered in the UK, which is about $15 in America. It's a bit cheaper over there. And you can also read or listen to the book Alcoholics Anonymous, often called the Big Book, completely free anytime at aa.org. Yeah, so please feel free to check that out. Now, meetings, you mentioned meetings. You said that you're active in face-to-face meetings. What
Yeah.
would you say has been the most encouraging and assuring thing about meetings that's been helpful to you?
Meetings, when I'm in a meeting, whether it be on Zoom or face to face, and with people who understand, um, they completely understand what it's like to be addicted to substances. And, you know, in the early days, it was my seeing seeing other people well was what gave me a bit of hope that, you know what, maybe I can do this. Maybe I am able to get recovery because I can see and hear that people have got well by coming to these meetings. And now, like, I go to meetings now to try and pass a message on now that I have recovered from the hopeless state that I was in. I've got a purpose to go and show other people that they can recover too. Um, so meetings are, they're everything to me. It's where people are there, they need support. Um, and even if I'm feeling well, spiritually well, I'll always learn something new every time someone shares. And I do think being teachable is, I'm never going to know everything about recovery. I'm never going to know everything about faith and spirituality. Every day I've got to have that head on that there's so much more to learn, and through the meetings it's a great place, and the unity and the connection as well. It saved me. It really has saved me, and it's through them connections that I've made through recovery that got me back into these rooms. So, you know, people who are struggling, who are new maybe, or have come back from a relapse, reach out to people. There's people ready and waiting to help you. Just reach out.
Absolutely. And, I try and listen to at least one meeting a day completely, start to finish, listen with the heart, Catherine. And, I'm
Mm,
usually to be found in a couple of meetings every day, but I'm often busy in the other meeting doing other things, or on the phone, busy dealing with other issues of life. And, in the meetings, we have the power of identification in the problem and the power of identification in the solution.
yeah,
We're reminded of the problem, we're reminded of the solution. When we stop attending meetings, it's possible to forget the problem and forget the solution, and then your old solution can be there for you.
yeah,
I was working with a dear member. Well, I've been working with a dear member now for a while, but over the last few days, been reminded of the reality of how, when we're in the solution, that is to say, listening closely with our hearts in meetings,
yeah.
reading carefully our literature, the big book, the 12 and 12, and the hundreds of other wonderful recovery books that are available today.
Mhm.
We're in the solution. When we are having conversations about recovery, like right now, we're in the solution. When we're working with others, doing journaling, column inventory, and step work, good self-care, you're in the solution.
Yeah.
When you're not, maybe you're not. And when you're not, the pity committee, the committee in your head,
Mhm.
has a conference and tells you catastrophizes, minimizes, maximizes, rationalizes, and justifies all kinds of things. And wonky thinking can come in, and we can get bedeviled and confused and convince ourselves that the world's against us, everything's terrible, nothing's going to work. Before we know it, the day can start to go south. Now, the spiritual toolkit, in my experience, is best used in the morning. When I worked as a joiner for several years, when I got to that building site at 7 or 8 in the morning, Catherine,
Yeah.
I wasn't there to talk about my feelings. When I got there, I got out of that car, got my tools out, and I got on that site and I got to work.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, I wouldn't have been there very long.
Yeah.
Right. And recovery is like that a little bit.
Yeah.
We've got to get up, get into action.
Yeah.
And if we
My
put
morning
in,
routine. Yeah. It's the
yeah,
most important part of the day. You know, I do set prayers. I meditate on and anything that I've asked in the prayers, and I do get the answers. I'm big into journaling, so I always do a bit of journaling, and half an hour to an hour. And there are a few times where I've not done my morning routine. I call it my morning routine with God, and all them days don't go well. They really
yeah,
don't go
yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, the natural mind needs to be dealt with. The natural thinking that can be in allegiance with the lower power, the alcoholic reasoning. The problem is alcoholism. Whatever the substance you used, it's defined in the term alcoholism. And it's an obsession of the mind, wrong thinking, wrong speaking, wrong living.
Mm,
The solution is to be vigilant and prayerful and stay connected with God,
yeah.
and watch our thought life. Right? And guard your heart. Don't allow your heart to be poisoned. Right?
Yes.
Guard your heart. Very, very, very important. It's very easy. When you're working with others, particularly if you're working with others a lot, you've got to be very, very cautious. Muddy waters. You
Mm,
won't necessarily die from drinking muddy water, but you'll feel very ill.
yeah.
And it's like that if you're listening to muddy waters, folks that are really, really struggling. You've got to be very, very close to God
Yeah.
and in the solution in order to maintain a fit spiritual condition working with others. That's been my experience. Having said that, some folks you work with are an absolute delight and a pleasure to work with. Others are very, very, very difficult to work with.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's on a slightly different topic. On the screen, we have a list of meetings. All the ones in blue are on every single day. You're welcome at them all. If you're in Great Britain, cocaineanonymous.org.uk is a website where you can get lots of information about face-to-face meetings and online meetings. There's also all kinds of pamphlets and information at that website. It's at the top center of this page that's on the screen just now. At ca.org, there's lots of other information. And there's links to a website, which is on the left, ca-online.org, where there's information about meetings as well. There is lots and lots of meetings. This is just some of the meetings. So for example, the Breakfast Club, top left, just underneath the pink box, is on every morning, 7:30. Great Gratitude every morning, 9:30. Pop-up Recovery every morning, 10:30. We Can Recover, 2 p.m, 8 p.m, 9:30. If you look in the center, the lower part of the middle column, there's 2 ladies meetings, 3 p.m, 5 p.m. As I say, We Can Recover, 8 p.m, 9:30. Daily Reprieve at the top right, 9:30, reaching out at 11, Tasana at midnight. So there's lots and lots of meetings where you can stay connected, learn about alcoholism, the problem, and recovery, the solution, and get some freedom, some sobriety. So if you're listening to this, our message is hope and our promise is freedom. That an addict, any addict, can quit using, lose that desire to use, and find a new way to live. Catherine, is there anything you would like to share with our listeners as we come to the end of this broadcast?
Yeah, just, if you're thinking about, is CA for me, is it not? Just come and give it a go. Honestly, you will never look back. Jump in 2 feet first and surround yourself with supportive, positive people. It's really worked for me, and if it can work for me, it can work for anybody.
Beautiful. Okay, families, stay strong, stay safe, stay connected, reach out, and hopefully, you can come to a meeting and hear more faith, hope, and courage shared. Stay strong. Thanks very much, Catherine, for your time. As always,
Thanks for inviting me.
to hear you. You're so welcome. Okay,
Thanks,
bye for now.
Carl.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Bye-bye.